Welcome to a simple English lesson on the power of prepositions. The Problems by myself, Will J. Moore. When you shake hands with someone, that handshake determines the relationship between the two of you. That's what prepositions do. This is a series of studies looking at how the preposition is treated in English instruction today. The inspiration for this line of inquiry began at a Teal annual conference in North Vancouver, BC in 1998 with Lee Gunderson and Catherine Eddy. For decades, they had been contracting with Immigration Canada to test and place incoming ESL students into the appropriate ESL classrooms in BC's K-12 schools. They were testing, on average, 20,000 students per year. That's 100 a day, 200 days of the year. They also tracked their placements, and they informed their audience of the following. Advanced placement in Canadian high schools is determined almost exclusively by the student's ability to use prepositions correctly. That was astounding. A very strong statement. And I decided I'd better look into it because it was completely unexpected. I asked myself, are prepositions difficult for students because they are intrinsically complex concepts? Or are prepositions difficult for students because we don't teach them? I took 15 ESL multi-skilled instructional texts at the beginner or intermediate level, published from 1985 to 2002, and I looked at how many pages focused on preposition or phrasal verb instruction. The book numbers are on the left, and the total pages in each book are listed on the right. Across the bottom are the number of pages focused on prepositions. 6 of those texts had 0 pages dedicated to prepositions or phrasal verb instruction. 2 of the books had lists of prepositions and phrasal verbs in the appendices, and only 7 had actual instruction. Out of the total, 105 pages out of almost 4,000 focused on prepositions or particles. That's well less than 3%, closer to 2.5. The details on these texts are added as an appendices at the end of this presentation. In another study of instructional texts, I found that while verbs exist as what are called active verbs, and as gerunds and as participles, they're all verb forms. Verbs can also be used as adjectives, as in a wanted man. But preposition words occur either as prepositions or as phrasal verb particles, or as infinitive markers or conjunctions, or even adverbs, which are very different functions, and they occur in almost equal frequencies. So again, I did a follow-up study. I looked at the frequency of verb versus preposition in a variety of texts. I chose 3 of the instructional texts for ESL students, and then a variety of fiction, history, education, mathematics, philosophy texts for English readers. And I also included one text which I dictated describing a video, that is book 12. The results show that prepositions, or preposition words, which actually also form phrasal verb particles, infinitive markers, adverbs, and conjunctions, occur on average 1.2 times more frequently than verb-type words. The details are included at the end of this presentation. Preposition words appear in texts on average 1.2 times for every verb. Yet prepositions only get about 2.6% focus in the instructional texts. I will not state the percentage devoted to verbs, but it is overwhelming. Prepositions are difficult for students, 1, because we hardly teach them at all, maybe 2.6%, and 2, because these same words form phrasal verb particles, as in come up to, infinitive markers, as in to, adverbs, as in down, and clause conjunctions, as in after, making them intrinsically complex. Another problem with the way prepositions are taught in the current paradigm is with the definitions provided. The preposition is conventionally thought of as the first word of a prepositional phrase. This from Gorell and Laird's Modern English Handbook, published 1958. And in a newer publication, a prepositional phrase consists of a preposition and its object, which is nearly always a noun group. Collins Cobild, English Grammar, 1992. While these definitions are not incorrect, they are misleading and really useless. They are a half-truth. Let me explain. In order to explain just how misleading those two definitions are, I need first to talk about adverbs and adverb phrases, or adverbials, as those phrases are called. All verbs can be modified in at least 3 ways, either with a how, a where, or a when modifier. If we look at the 3 simple sentences, I went quickly, I went home, and I went yesterday, we can combine these into a longer, simple sentence that might read, I went quickly home yesterday, or I quickly went home yesterday. The how adverb preferably goes closest to the verb, either before or after. Sometimes it's important where. The when adverb always goes either at the beginning or end of the sentence. So it's either, yesterday I went quickly home, or I went quickly home yesterday. And the where adverb must follow the verb. It cannot come before the verb. Because we've created these places where adverbs can go, sometimes we can use that space for a different adverb. So I might say, yesterday I went home quickly, and put quickly at the end of the sentence instead of next to the verb. But that's an advanced level. Let's move on now to adverb phrases, which is where we encounter prepositions. Many times, a modifier will be a multiple word modifier. These are adverbials. And in the example, I bought some cheese carefully, I bought some cheese from the deli, and I bought some cheese after lunch, then we can combine these following the same rules into perhaps I carefully bought some cheese from the deli after lunch. Or after lunch, I carefully bought some cheese from the deli. But not I, from the deli, bought some cheese carefully after lunch, because the where modifier cannot precede the verb. So now let's go to our explanation of why The definitions of a preposition and preposition phrase are so misleading.
So now we come to the question of, is this multi-word modifier an adverbial or a preposition phrase? Because the definition of a preposition phrase is that it begins with a preposition and that it has an object. But most adverbials begin with a preposition. And this is the source of confusion about preposition phrases. They are already defined as adverbials. We don't need a preposition phrase definition that duplicates the definition of an adverbial.
And furthermore, only tells us what it looks like, not what it does.
And it's the reason a new definition is needed for preposition phrases. Thankfully, there is one. Sir David Crystal, author of the Cambridge Encyclopedia of the English Language, 1996, defined the preposition as the preposition expresses a relationship of meaning between two parts of a sentence. So if we look at the sentence, a boy on a bicycle is going to school, what we have is a preposition phrase, noun group, preposition, noun group, and a second preposition phrase, verb group, preposition, noun group. The two parts connected. And we note that two preposition phrases equal a sentence. This makes a lot more sense than having two terms for one set of words.
One last point to clarify is the difference between a preposition and a phrasal verb particle. So in the sentence, please turn on the yellow light. Turn is the verb and on is the particle. Together, they form a phrasal verb. The difference between a particle and a preposition is that the particle influences the verb. But if we look down below at the airplane emergency on the ground with smoke in the cabin, the fireman or the attendant is telling the passenger, please crawl down there and turn on the yellow light. So the passenger will follow the lights, and when he comes to the yellow light, he will turn either left or right in order to exit the plane. So the preposition creates a relationship between the action and a location, that is, on the yellow light. This is the end of the power of prepositions, the problems. Thank you for your attention. You should follow this by watching The Power of Prepositions, a Solution.